We're live.
We are live and talking with Brett Guthrie tonight. Representative Guthrie, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, so we had a very exciting week in Washington this week, and I want to apologize to everyone that may be watching out there and not seeing all the video and such, but coming up on screen here, you're just going to probably end up seeing. You'll probably just end up seeing Steve, and it'll just be Brett and I will just be in audio. We've had a little bit of difficulties, and that's why it took us so long to get started. But Brett, let's go ahead and just get right into it. What happened with Speaker McCarthy and the whole situation? You want to take us through that?
Absolutely. So you said exciting week. I don't know if I'd call it. It's certainly, I guess, exciting for people who watch politics, but it was kind of a disappointing week, and it was, I think, very serious for what could be the Republican Party and the House of Representatives moving forward. Let me kind of give you kind of the staple with it. So when we do appropriation bills, this is what when we first started. There's typically 12 single subject appropriations, well, not really single subject, but 12 departmental appropriation bills. And we made a commitment early that all 12 haven't been passed since 1990s, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And so that just shows the process is broken anyway. If something hadn't worked in almost 40 years and the process is broken, or 30 years, the process is broken. And we need to reform the process. But anyway, so we were doing our 12 bills. Most of them couldn't get out of committee or across the floor of the House because amongst Republicans, we couldn't agree moving forward. And some of the guys that I'll talk about in just a few minutes would say, well, we need a consensus before we bring these bills to the floor. Well, you would have 200 people being for a bill. And you got to remember, we have people, a couple of names that are prominent right now, Jim Jordan and Thomas Massie. They're in the same, and were for bills. So were Mike Lawler and Don Bacon. Don Bacon's from Omaha, a district that Joe Biden won, so is Mike Lawler. And we were able to come together, but it just was never enough for about 20, and it gets down to 6 as I go through the story. So we couldn't get the bills out of committee, but the people who wouldn't vote for anything that we agreed upon complained about the bills not coming to the floor of the House. So anyway, so what happens if you don't pass spending bills? We have, I think, 4 of the 12, but it's 70% of the spending. So Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid is a separate budget area. We're talking about defense, veterans, and then just running the federal government, Health and Human Services, national parks, NIH, that approves, cancer drugs, those kinds of things moving forward. So that's what we were arguing over. So we came up with a bill. We knew we had to have time because we couldn't, October the 1st, essentially the government shutdown meant the executive branch couldn't write checks because it wasn't approved by Congress. And you remember defense is in that. So, soldiers wouldn't get paid, Border Patrol wouldn't get paid, other people wouldn't get paid. And so we didn't want that to happen. And so we came up with a bill. It says, let's extend government funding for 31 days until October 31st, 30 days until October 31st. That was a 30% cut in spending, non-defense, 30% cut. Think about how big that cut in spending is. And it fully funded new border agents, and remain in Mexico policy. And we said if the Democrats in the Senate and on the House floor want to shut down the government over not securing the border, that's a fight we can have. We're ready for that fight. And we don't want to shut down the government. Nobody wanted to shut down the government. But if they were willing to say, we're not going to secure the border, we'd rather shut down the government, we thought we could defend that ground. Well, we go to the floor with that bill, and 21 Republicans didn't vote for it. And remember, it's 222 if everybody's there to
Right.
210. And so, with you lose 21 Republicans, that bill failed. So then we go back into a room together. We're all together in a room. This is what's happened. Personalities are going at each other back and forth. And so Kevin McCarthy says, what do we need to do? And so some of the 21 who voted against it said, we think 30 days is too long. Let's do 14 days. So we agreed on a number to get past military payday, which they were going to do 7. So we said, why don't we do 14 days? That goes to the October 13th military payday.
Right.
And so we...
So we're at least taking care of our
14.
soldiers, right?
Exactly. So we agreed on the 14 days. We go away, we come back, and 6 people refused to vote for it. I never heard the names of the 6, but I assume they're the 6 that were of the 8
6 of
that
the 8
voted against Kevin. I assume those were the ones. 2 of them I know were Matt Gaetz and Matt Rosendale, because what then we said, they said they wouldn't vote for anything. And so we said, well, let's at least send a bill to the Senate that says our soldiers get paid. And they wouldn't vote for that. And so once that didn't happen, we go, this is an untenable position. If we can't get a majority of Republicans to vote for a bill, we're going to have to accept a Senate bill, which is going to be far worse than anything that we would send over. And so the Senate was working on a bill. They called it a bipartisan bill, but it was pretty weighed heavily towards the Democrat priorities.
Of course.
And we had maybe a dozen. We have probably, I think it's a dozen to 15 members of Congress of our party that were elected in districts Biden won. You know, Mike Lawler's been pretty prominent on television. He's around where I went to college at West Point. He's in that area, and he won a district that Biden won by, I think, 9 points, if not even bigger than that. We won the majority by picking up by Lee Zeldin. A lot of people listen to this follow that New York governor's race. Lee Zeldin didn't win, but his campaign and running an effective campaign brought 4 new members of Congress from New York from Democrat seats. And then we picked up another 3 from an extra 3 from California. So we really won our majority by these seats that were Biden seats, not by increasing more conservative seats. And so they were really put in a bind. And they said, if the Senate bill comes over here, we're all going to vote for it. So the choice Kevin McCarthy had was put up another Republican bill that people wouldn't vote for, that would fail because they had 6 holdouts, or accept the Senate bill. So we came up with the middle. He says, why don't we do a 45-day CR? We'll do disaster funding. It's a clean CR and put it on the floor, and that passed. And that's why the 6 people, and ended up being 8. And there were some other reasons that nobody's really fairly articulated. I've heard several people say Kevin McCarthy lied to them. And then when I specifically say, well, what did he lie about? It's all vague. They never really say. So it was frustrating. So what happened then, we go to the floor of the House, and 8 Republicans vote with 210 Democrats. Or 208. It was 8 Republicans and 208 Democrats. It was 216 to
216. Yeah, I saw the vote. 216
to 208.
Yeah.
So we lost 8. So we would have been 216. There were some people out because if you have 435 people, we actually were a little less than that because of a couple of vacancies. But when you have over 400 people, there's going to be somebody that has. We had a couple of people with cancer treatment. The lady had a baby. The lady from Florida, Miss Luna, has had a baby, so she wasn't there. And so it gets to where,
but still they had 216. 216 was the
number.
It was going to be the number
8
anyway.
Republicans with 208 Democrats that took Kevin McCarthy out of the speakership, and now we're in complete chaos as a party in Washington, as a government. And I've had people, I read the texts and the things people have sent or postings, and it's pretty serious. And Matt didn't offer a plan. He didn't offer alternative. He didn't offer anything other than a personal grievance with Kevin. And he was able to persuade a handful of his really close friends to vote with him.
And of course, he's out there
chaos.
spinning it. And it's to me, it's going to be this puts everybody in the difficult situation, because now it's like, we're trying to create we're trying to get a bigger majority, and it's going to be harder for people to vote for us if we can't even get our own side settled.
Well, what happened is, but I'll tell you, those guys in the room would say, we can't believe that, because there was people on the more moderate side of our party who were saying, and I was absolutely not one of them, but people saying that we will vote for the Democrat Senate bill when it comes over here, and that will pass. And the other guys who voted said, I can't believe y'all would work with Democrats. That's wrong. You shouldn't work with Democrats or Republicans. And I agree with that in terms of controlling the floor. I mean, sometimes you got to find bills that you both can support. I get it, because if it's going to pass the Senate, you got to have Democrat votes if the president signed it. But just in terms of just controlling the floor, bringing legislation to the floor. And Matt Gaetz, because we had a motion to table his motion, I guess then it was even more. I think it was 12. A couple of them backed off in the final vote. 12 or 11 or 12 voted with 208 Democrats to control the floor, essentially give the floor to the Democrats. So the Democrats, if you posted 208 votes, so 8 Republicans gave Democrats a control of the floor of the House of Representatives, probably for the first time in history. And now we're reaping the problem with it is that now we're not going to be able to govern because you got people on the more moderate part of our party. If they don't like what's happened, they can team up with Democrats. If Matt Gaetz can do it, why can't they? Is what you're hearing people say.
Yeah.
And it has caused complete chaos in Washington, and it's unfortunate because I'm the healthcare subcommittee chairman, and we're working on trying to get a handle on healthcare spending. That is what's driving our debt. Whether you take, $1 billion out of national parks or $2 billion out of national parks, we have a $2 trillion debt. And we have to go after that spending, and we're trying to put in place the mechanism to do it. And we've had a couple of people on our side of the aisle, and not necessarily these 8, but from that group, that have blocked even a bill from coming to the floor that just shows hospitals and doctors and so forth have to show what they charge, so we can get to getting it under control. And I've been telling people, if we can't tell hospitals they have to expose their prices, we're never going to solve the debt problem.
No, well, I mean, what does Matt Gaetz and this group want? Do we have any idea?
Mark,
that's what
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Steve wants to ask a question. I'm sorry, but
yeah, that's what. But that question is, we were in the room and they were up on the thing. So what's next? If we do this, what do you guys want out of this? And they go, we want some words like regular order. We want, it's just generics. There's no. This is the plan to move forward.
So I have 2 questions, Brett. You had at one point you guys had a military. Let's fund the military. You had 100% support from the Republicans, but no Democrat voted for that. And I guess I'm confused. Why, if the Democrats say they're for veterans, why wouldn't they have voted for that when y'all were at a point where y'all at least had an agreement to fund the military? Could you explain that one?
Okay, so here's the point with that. So we did pass a defense appropriations bill. That's the full bill. That wasn't just to pay our military. That was, we put in things like you can't have, transgender surgeries. We took the woke, and you can't have all this woke stuff in the military. There were a lot of provisions in there that we thought were important that Democrats just didn't support. And so it wasn't just a straight up vote on whether or not we pay our soldiers. It was the full bill.
Okay.
So we knew the Senate was not going to take that up, and if they did, they were going to put some of that, and we were going to argue them. I mean, they're talking about shutting down the government, there are things worth shutting the government down over. We didn't think the border was one that we were securing. The border, I think, is the number one priority, and so that bill was in the Senate. So when we came Saturday morning, I guess last Saturday, and said, well, let's just pass a bill that just pays the military, doesn't do anything else for the military, just pays our soldiers. And when those guys refused to vote for that, I said, we don't need to have our men and women and Border Patrol. I've been to the border. They're weary. They're exhausted. Yep. They're frustrated. I mean, believe me, there's nobody that wants to control the border more than the Border Patrol.
I mean, we see this
down there, and they have they're essentially not physically, but politically handcuffed. And then we're going to tell them we're not going to pay you when all this is going on. It just didn't. It was nonsensical, the position these people were taking. When, as you said, Steve, they didn't offer, or Mark, you didn't offer an alternative.
Yeah.
Yeah. Could I ask you one more question?
What they said was we're not going to vote for that bill. Just make the Senate vote for the full bill. Well, that just wasn't going to. I mean, because we put stuff in there no Democrat's going to vote for, but we think it's the right for the country, and let the Senate pass what they're going to pass, and then we'll fight over those provisions. But the abortion, that the military can't pay for an abortion, that was in the bill. That's why the Democrats voted. There's one pro-life Democrat in Washington, D.C., and he's the one that got carjacked the other day. Had nothing to do with his conservative leanings, but Henry Cuellar is the only guy that ever votes with us on pro-life bills.
Right. So moving forward, now that the Speaker of the House has been removed, how is that playing out for our party and replacing leadership moving forward?
Well, the first thing, I was standing next to Jamie Comer when this happened. Jamie's leads our investigation committee, and he looked over at me and he said, we've got a lot of subpoenas out there, and this week we're in, information is supposed to be coming back, or they're going to ignore our subpoenas on the Biden family. And he goes, I hope this doesn't, and I haven't heard the result because we're still waiting, hope this doesn't give them the chance to say, well, we'll comply when you have a speaker, because the House is essentially non-functioning until you pick a speaker. Wow. Well, that's going to be next week. So people need to realize what this is. This is really set back getting in for, because you wouldn't know anything on Hunter Biden that we know if
Yeah.
it wasn't for Jamie Comer's committee and Jim Jordan's committee, and just wouldn't. We found the FBI asleep at the wheel, or not asleep at the wheel, ignorant or willfully ignorant at the wheel on these things, Department of Justice.
And it's sitting
And so
there.
this really sets that stuff back as well. It
And I would say
absolutely
it's
sets
just
it
sitting
back.
there waiting on. It's just sitting there waiting on the on these 8 people, basically, because the Democrats don't have control. 8 people are now saying we're not going to get to all these things because we want something, but we're not telling you exactly what we want. And that's just, to me, that's just, it's crazy. I understand wanting to be disruptive a little bit to try to shake things up. I understand people's wanting to do that. I mean, it happens. We talk about that around here, and there's a lot of things that people get upset about, and they want to see change, and they want to see it right now. And to that end, they want to see some disruption. But you can't have disruption without at least having a plan of what you want to get done with that. You have to, follow that up.
People want disruption. What they don't want is destruction.
Exactly.
For instance, we're trying to get a handle on healthcare costs in America. People are paying way too much for their healthcare. The Affordable Care Act has inflated the healthcare system, and I can give you a full insight on Obamacare, why it's wrong, why it's failed. Now, more people have health insurance because your tax. That's why we have a $2 trillion debt, because we're just funneling money to health insurance companies. We're subsidizing it, and what's disruption is. You can't get a price on healthcare in America. You can't.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible to get a price. So disruption is going in. Let's find your price. Let's find where you're making money. Let's find where you're losing money. If we're not paying enough for this, we need to. If we're paying too much for that, we need to quit. We can't continue to borrow $2 trillion. But what would be destruction is if you just cut that, and then you start closing down rural hospitals, and then people don't have access to healthcare. So you got to be smart, because I consider myself a disruptor. I know that people don't think I have that kind of personality, but believe me, if you're in the healthcare world in Washington D.C. lobbying, you're kind of mad at me right now. But I don't care, because I think it's going to be the best for the people that I represent to get prices on health, just prices. It's more than just hospitals. I said hospitals. It's the whole healthcare system, pharmaceutical companies, insurance companies. It's just frustrating where all this has gone. But anyway, so what I'm saying is we're trying to disrupt that. Matter of fact, I'm trying to expose prices so disruptors can come in, like Mark Cuban. Like Mark Cuban says, well, if insulin is really $35 to $50, but they're charging $300 for it, I'll charge 50 plus a administration fee.
That's right.
That's what he says. And those guys that's the system we're trying to create, and that's disruptive. Well, it'd be destructive just to say, I'm going to shut down the government. What's that? Excuse me?
I'm sorry. I got one more for you, too. It's exactly on the same note. There were a lot of college students that were disappointed because their college loans are not going to get paid for. The minute the government pays for their college loans, then you're going to see tuition rates go through the roof, and you can just borrow money because the government will pay for it. The same thing will happen with education, and I'm afraid that'll happen. When there's a good alternative, you could actually go and join the military, and they'll help you pay for your college.
They will help you, and you earn it. You earn it.
That's
now,
right.
when you say the government pays your tuition, the government doesn't pay your tuition. Everybody else, the taxpayers, pay your tuition.
They
I know
do.
you meant
They
that
do.
when you said it.
Yeah,
But I use that example. Steve, I use that example all the time. What are the 2 fastest growing? Now we have inflation everywhere, but even a decade ago, before Biden, we had inflation in healthcare and in college tuition. Why? Because the government subsidizes it at such a level. Anytime you get assistance for college tuition, colleges raise their tuition. Whenever you get assistance for your health insurance, they just raise the price of health insurance, and it leads us to a $2 trillion debt. And those are the things that I want to disrupt. But having a battle royale where you can get time on television and take out a Speaker of the House for the first time in history, and put our whole party in chaos, and really derail an important investigation on Joe Biden. I mean, we ought to do another show on that, because I know Jamie.
I'm writing it down right now, Brett.
Best friends, I can give you the full layout of what's going on with that. Think about it. I know I got to be somewhere in a couple of minutes, but I just want to This is what Jamie Comer says. If you think about last January, before Kevin McCarthy made him part of this committee and put the committee together, this is what the press talked about in January. Hunter Biden's laptop was fake. Joe Biden never met with anybody Hunter Biden met with. Hunter Biden never discussed business with Joe Biden. Hunter Biden had a legitimate business that was just doing business overseas. And there's one other thing, there's the five. What we do know, the Hunter Biden's laptop is real. It's non-debatable. Joe Biden had meetings with Hunter Biden's people that were paying him for foreign. Matter of fact, they were closely. People keep saying you don't have any evidence. I don't think we have anything that's a smoking gun, but it is beyond a reasonable suspicion, which is why you investigate, that if Hunter Biden goes to Romania with his father and comes back and within a couple of days gets a multi-million-dollar transfer into his account, I think that's reasonable suspicion that something happened almost 2 or 3 days. He was traveling with the vice president. Oh, that was the other one, that none of this happened when he was vice president. That was the fifth. And all of those are false. We know those are false, and we wouldn't do it if Kevin McCarthy hadn't appointed Jamie, and Jamie hadn't had this wonderful investigative team to follow this. And we're not going to let it slip. We just got to. We delayed. We're absolutely delayed by being in an impasse with our speaker. We got a couple of guys running. Right. Well, actually, I think there's 3 now. But Jim Jordan and Steve Scalise are both conservative. They're both wonderful people. And then I understand that a guy named Kevin Hearn, who's from Oklahoma, he's a McDonald's franchisor and got tired of the way small businesses are treated and ran for Congress. He's a good guy too. My guess right now is between Steve. Steve's suffering with cancer right now. Yeah. And so it's kind of a tough time for him. He's the one that was shot at the baseball game. Yeah. Mm-hmm. He's tough as nails. He's a great guy. And of course, most people, if you watch Fox, know Jim Jordan. Talking about a bulldog. He's a fighter. And, you know, both of them would be great speakers. We'll see how we're going to have a forum on Tuesday night and hopefully come together. And what we hope is whoever the 216 of us pick, the majority, that everybody will vote for speaker, and then we can go govern. Because if 210 people pick somebody and 11 people say that's not the one, then the Democrats control the floor again. And that's just not acceptable.
Do you have a comment on the conversation about voting for Trump for the Speaker of the House?
Well, you know, that's interesting. I think Marjorie Taylor Greene's brought that up. As a matter of fact, I picked on her right before we left D.C. because guess what? Guess who's coming to Lexington this weekend? Her bulldog. So I was giving her the CATS as we were leaving. But I guess we need a little levity when you left Washington this week. Sure. But she suggested that. The only issue with that is of course, there's never been a non-member of Congress Speaker of the House. The Constitution is really kind of vague on that whatsoever. The only issue is he's running for president. I don't think he wants to give up running for president to be speaker. Sure. And we have, like, if, say, Jamie Comer had decided to run for governor this year, he would have to step down from it. So we have rules. You can't run for another office and hold a leadership office. So we got to figure that part of it out. But if he's Speaker of the House, how's he going to be in Iowa, New Hampshire? I understand that members of the Senate and members of Congress run for president. But when you're Speaker, you kind of run things every day, and it's a day-to-day job. So I'd have to figure out how that – but it's intriguing. I have to give you that. It's absolutely intriguing. And supposedly I've heard he's going to come to Washington and talk about it. So that could be –
I have comment on it personally, but
I think the 208 people, Democrats, would wish they hadn't voted with the 8 Republicans if that happened.
Yeah. I think I don't have a comment on it per se. I just found it interesting because it does create a constitutional challenge, and I think it's always good to know what our limits are as far as things. But I just found it interesting, given all of the, as you said, chaos this week. That's one more layer. I guess it does. I like, to your point, we left with some humor, right? So.
Yeah, well, I was doing CA. I didn't do the actual cheer. Yeah. But I said to Marjorie, when I saw her the night before, we flew out the next morning and did her a CATS kind of tour to make sure her Bulldogs, because it's going to be a big game. It's going to be that we're going to have an undefeated Georgia, an undefeated
Kentucky
Wildcat
team this weekend. We've had it. So, it's happened a couple of times, but you know they've gotten the better of us for the last few times. But hey, I like our team. I like our team a
I
lot.
would like nothing more to see Marjorie on Tuesday night say, "I told you so." So we'll see that. But yeah, she's the one promoting Trump, and we'll see how that moves forward. But I've heard that he's at least expressed interest. I don't think he said I will do this and not run for president. And if that's the case, it'd be tough. It's just tough to be speaker and not be there.
Yeah.
Sure.
And it's tough to run for president and not be in Iowa and New Hampshire and all the other places you have to do.
Yeah. I mean, I think
but it certainly
it's
is
an interesting idea.
if you just wanted politics as a spectator sport, it'd be fun to watch.
It would, yeah.
The Democrats who helped take Kevin out, and well, I can't blame them. If we wouldn't have saved Pelosi. So I'm not blaming them for it, but I think they're going to rue the day they did that.
Yeah, it definitely puts us in uncharted territories, and I know you have to go, Brett. But
I know, what a pleasure, and thanks for everybody in Meade County and surrounding areas watching this, and look forward to doing more of these. I think we should do these regularly. I would love to.
Yeah, we put you on the schedule, and
I'll figure
get you in here.
I'll figure out how to get set up in my house so you can see my ugly mug when we're talking.
Well, we're trying to work that out ourselves. It's really just because I'm not usually the producer. It's usually Steve over here in this seat, and he's off and he's off in vacation, and
God bless fall break, right?
That's right. Fun. That's right.
All right.
Thanks, Brad.
Bowling Green's in Destin right now, so you went the wrong direction. All right. Well, y'all enjoy.
We'll definitely set something up for you in the future. Thanks, Brett. Thanks for talking to us.
I look forward to it. I look forward to being regular. Thanks.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Well, Mark, it's a good show, buddy.
It's just so but just before we wrap up, it's such an interesting time. And by the way, I did finally figure out how to get you and I in split screen here. So I finally figured out what was wrong with the camera feed. There was actually an activate button in there, by the way. So I didn't know where it was at. I figured it out. But you and I are now side by side, so that's cool. But really, this whole thing is, and I like how Brett described that. You want to be a disruptor, but not a destructor. And we are seeing destruction right now because any momentum that we've had is completely gone. And I understand
to the Democrats if we don't get our stuff together.
Yeah, I mean, how are we going to be able to go and get people to go vote for more Republicans? We have an election coming up in 33 days.
Right.
33 days, 32 days really now, I guess. And, it's already hard to get people motivated in these off-year elections. Everybody's looking at 2024 saying, Trump's running. He's going to, but you got to give them help. You got to give Trump help by making sure that we're sending, a governor and people who will help execute the plans that he puts together in the states. And we in Kentucky right now, we will execute. We have. Of all the positions, the one we don't have is the governor, and there's polls out that it's tightening up, and there's polls out, and I haven't seen a real, what I would consider a real unbiased poll come out. As a matter of fact, you can look out on like Real Clear Politics and stuff. Like they usually pull all the polls in. Well, they no longer they have not had a poll show up for our governor's race since June 2nd was the last time they had one. Now there's been a few trickle out, but they're all partisan ones. They're all the campaign put one out. And
I got a poll for you though, Mark.
What's that?
October the 10th at 6 p.m. at Doe Valley at the tennis club.
That's right.
Come out there. You can meet with Daniel Cameron and bring your pocketbook because it's a
fundraiser. We need money for him. He needs money to get his message out.
This is now we've had numerous opportunities for everybody to come and see Daniel Cameron without having to break your pocketbook. But if you really care about Daniel Cameron being elected as our governor, we're looking. It's $500 a seat to have and come meet with him. We're trying to raise about $20,000 from this county to support Daniel Cameron. And you can donate more, obviously, if you haven't contributed to his campaign. If you have and you are a donor of his campaign and have maxed out your donor, there's a seat for you at the table as well.
Yeah, just come on out. I mean, there's no reason to. There's no reason to. I mean, if you've already contributed, we want to celebrate you too. So if you've already contributed the maximum, come on out. And if you have, you know, we're trying to get as much money in his pockets as possible. And you know, we have a limited space, so that's why this is such smaller, but asking for more bigger amounts. And we're trying to you know, get as much as we can out of this, and show that Meade County cares about this. They care about the governor's race, and you know, we are going to you know, we're going to be hitting doors. We're looking for people to go knock doors on. There's going to be a big outbreak of door knocking on October 21st, I believe, whatever that Saturday is there, I believe is the 21st. And, you know, so we're asking people to come out and knock doors that day, you know, that day, Saturday, Friday. If you can't do Saturday, do some on Friday. If you can't do Friday, and you don't have to necessarily come out and knock doors any particular day. Go knock 5 doors tomorrow. Go knock 10 doors, you know, on Monday. Whatever it takes. We need your help going out and getting the word out that Daniel Cameron needs to be our next governor of the state of Kentucky, and we need to vote straight Republican ticket. We need to put every person. It doesn't help us if we don't. It doesn't help the Commonwealth if we have all these laws that are enacted, and then the people who we're putting in charge of executing those laws don't, you know, they're going to sue us. They're going to sue the legislature. They're going to sue the state. They're going to work against us. And unfortunately, that's what we're going to see. We're going to see a lot of destruction, and not just disruption, but destruction out of the Democratic Party if they get these seats back, if these get these positions back.
Now, I want to clarify something. It's okay to have a lawsuit if something's wrong.
That's right.
But keep suing the Republicans over and over again and losing your lawsuits because we're right. There's a problem with our government, and that's why we need to put the seat, and then we need to put Daniel Cameron in place.
That's right.
Scheer is wrong, and his style of leadership, the Biden leadership that he's following, is wrong for our country. We are a land of laws. We're a republic. We left off with that last week, and we'll continue with it every week from here until then. And we need people who are going to enforce the laws and build laws that protect our citizens.
Amen.
And that's the bottom. And
that's
not
right.
dole our citizens. We had a great conversation from Brett tonight. Talked about that. You know, we're tired of doling our citizens and giving people the opportunity to thrive in a free America.
Yeah,
and
we have, again, it's okay to be a disruptor, but you have to have a plan. What do you want? What is it that you what is it that you want done, and that you need, that you want to disrupt things? And it's okay. But it can't just be just to disrupt. It can't be just to say, hey, I can show you my power, because right now nobody has a strong majority, so I've got an opportunity. And I don't believe I'm at first I thought Matt Gaetz was more than just I thought he had an agenda that he wanted to see get across, but all I'm seeing right now is he didn't know who he wanted to be the next speaker. All he knew is he wanted Kevin McCarthy out. He didn't want Kevin McCarthy to begin with. So, and I'm not, hey, I'm going to tell you right now, I wasn't a big Kevin McCarthy fan. I wasn't. I think that we need to get away from putting people in charge of from California in charge of everything. Nancy Pelosi, the speaker. Oh, Kevin McCarthy from California. The speaker, and I understand, there's good Republicans in California, but I'd like to see somebody from the Midwest, put some Midwest values, become speaker. We've for a long time we've said this, and even like we talk about in our own state, we tend to put people in and around, even as Republicans, tend to put people in and around Louisville, LaGrange area up there in Oldham County, and those suburb areas, and we can tend to put them in charge of things. And it's like, I think it's like we need to make sure that we put some just good old common sense folk in some of these positions, and let's give them a shot for a while. So again, while I agree, I think that it's okay. I think it's time for us to it's time for us to, while I agree with, hey, let's get some new meat. I think we needed to have a plan before we went down this trail. And I don't think that they had one. They just decided to take the opportunity to throw things down the trash bin. So, yep. So,
hey, Mark, great show. Did a good job last minute jumping it together. But I mean, we had Brett on. I think it was a great insight into what's happening in Congress, and what a better place to hear it from the Mead Truth. Good job tonight, Mark.
Oh, thank you, Steve. Appreciate you jumping on with me on your vacation. And one last thing, anybody needs signs, give us a call, 270-945-3418. We didn't give the phone number out earlier because Brett was on that line, so we knew that we wouldn't be able to take those calls, but 270-945-3418. We have Daniel Cameron signs. We are looking for people to do phone calls and door knocking, so give us a call, 270-945-3418. Steve, you have a wonderful rest of your vacation, and we are going to be back next week, and we were going to set something up with Brett Guthrie and see if we can get some regular guests like that on the show. So thanks, everybody. We ask you to just be careful out there and get out and vote, and get your neighbors to go with you. Peace.
Go vote.
Go vote.
Hey, Mark.
See ya.